Hey mages, welcome to today's video. Today I've got 3 Brothers War standard decks for you, all for best of 1 standard. Recently I did a poll about which card you wanted me to brew around next, and that winner was Painful Quandary. So thank you to everyone that voted. I've got 3 different decks for you to look at today. So the reason behind doing 3 different decks, I've got an idea of putting these cards out what you'd like to be built around, and then I give you various options of different types of deck. And what I want you to do is stay to the end of the video so you see all 3 decks. Pick which one's your favourite, put it in the comments below, let me know what you think, and then whichever one gets the most comments, I will then do a gameplay video around. So, the first one we're going to look at is an Orzhov variation. As you can see, Painful Quandary is in here as a 3-of. It's in a 3-of of every single one of these decks. If you don't know what Painful Quandary does, it's whenever an opponent casts a spell, that player loses 5 life unless they discard a card. So in this type of build, what we're going for is mass removal, and then basically keeping everything clear to get Painful Quandary on, so opponents are forced into playing something or having to discard cards. Now, originally I did have Liliana in here. I thought Liliana was good, but then I realised I needed to attack graveyards a bit more, which is why Graveyard Trespasser came into this deck. It's just a very good card. Now, maybe I could have fit both in, but there's other cards that I wanted to try out. And with having 3 different builds, everyone's collections are different. Some of you might have all the cards that you need. Some of you might have specific cards. So some of these decks will be good for you because you've got more of one type in that deck, which is why I've done 3 different color combinations. So mass removal, what do we have? We have Farewell in there. This card is very good at the moment. Exiling artifacts seems pretty strong. Exiling graveyards is strong because there's a lot of the Phyrexian decks out there, the portal decks that want to be cheating stuff into play early. So Farewell is a very good card, and also we can attack the graveyard, like I said, with Graveyard Trespasser. We have Path of Peril. Good 3 mana, getting rid of when you're playing aggro decks. This can come down, destroy all creatures with mana value 2 or less. We don't really have anything like that other than when we play Sunset Reverie, where potentially we could have the tokens into play. And obviously the tokens that we make with Wandering Emperor and Sorin. But this is really used for more earlier play. And if not, it gives us a late sweeper as well. Spot removal. We have a couple of cut down in this deck. There's 4 go for the throat. That, there is a lot of artifacts that could be played, but for me, this is still probably the more preferable one over this at the moment, Infernal Grasp, just because we want to be saving a little bit of life if we can. But this deck can gain some life. So, if you want to swap these round, I'm just trying to save a little bit of life, and this is better, but you could honestly go 3 and 2 if you wanted to, because we've got Sunset Reverie. Occasionally we'll be gaining 4 life there as well. Card that I really enjoy is this uncommon Union of the Third Path. Draw a card and gain life equal to the number of cards in your hand. Now against aggro decks and everything like that, this card has been a bit of a saviour. So this is a really cool common card. Now you only draw 1 card, but the gaining life for 3 mana I think is definitely worth it. Depopulate, I forgot to mention as well, is another mass removal. We will literally just be clearing the fields with this deck of all those aggro creatures. So the win cons obviously for this deck. Painful Quandary is a way where if you can just deplete, they run out of cards, which a lot of aggro decks do because they're very low mana curve and they want to get it down, then they will start losing that 5 life. In conjunction with Sheoldred, the Apocalypse, probably one of the best cards in standard. Whenever you draw a card, we gain 2 life. When an opponent draws a card, they lose 2 life. Now, you will notice in this build, there's no Invoke Despair, because, I went through a different type of build, and, not everyone has Invoke Despair. Now, that could be a very good card for that, but then, to be honest, it becomes another Invoke Despair deck for this one. So I wanted this one, the Orzhov one, basically to be hopefully winning with Painful Quandary. But failing that, we have the Wandering Emperor, we have Sorin, we have good ways, good Planeswalkers, and a very good creature in Sheoldred. We do have a single Anointed Peacekeeper in there, 3/3. You can potentially stop a really annoying card where it will be delayed. They cost 2 more to cast, so that's a nice creature to have as well. And like I've already mentioned, Graveyard Trespasser. More removal. Fateful Absence, just a single one of them there. That's not going to fit in. It helps with a little bit against Planeswalkers. But this deck is really about solid Orzhov removal, clearing the path through. This is the way this deck wants to play, and then winning your game, hopefully with your Painful Quandary or with your Planeswalkers and your Sheoldredge. Land base, very simple. Couple of Arganju because we're more damage, damage based on this one, so this can do 4 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. And then we have Takunuma as a 1, then just the basic rare lands that come in here that really help this deck be consistent. Lands, obviously, very, very important part of the deck. As I always say, the rarest, we don't like crafting them, but we know how important they are. But this is the Orzhov Quandary deck. If this one's for you, take a look. But we're going to have a look. Don't forget, stay to the end because there might be the other one that you want to see the gameplay of. Now we go to Esper, and this has some of the cards that the Orzhov cards, like I said, didn't have. Invoke Despair is in there as a secondary win con to the Painful Quandary. We have the full 4 of these in here, and then Liliana is in this one to add in some discard. And we got a little bit, the addition of blue for this deck to make it Esper really does help sometimes. We've got Negate, Essence Scatter. This is where you bring in the counter magic that can, Orzhov is all about the removal. This is not so much about the removal. We see that we don't have Farewell in there, but we still run a 4 of Depopulate. And my favourite card at the moment, Union of the Third Path, because, we need to gain some life sometimes. But even more counter magic, Atali Scorn, that can sometimes cost the OG counter spell of double blue if it's a second spell played. Also, giving an offer you can't refuse a go. Now, I haven't seen this too much in Standard, but when it stops an Invoke Despair or something like that, it actually works out really well. You do give them the 2 treasure tokens, but the ability to leave 1 mana up, because this is a nightmare. Invoke Despair to play against is such a nightmare. Obviously, can kill our Painful Quandary as well. We have to sack that if it's on the field. So the idea of this deck is to, protect your Painful Quandary with your Scorns, your Negates, and your offers you can't refuse. Attack their hands, take their opponent ones away with the Duress as well. So this deck works a little bit different to the other one. There's more counter magic, but that does have removal as well. Not so many creatures. We just have like Sheoldredge in there to put in some damage, and the combination of Sheoldredge, Apocalypse, Sheoldredge the Apocalypse, Invoke Despair, and Painful Quandary is just such a trio of cards, and they can really get the work done. Now Liliana on the field, if we can make opponents keep discarding, which is what is really good for us. They can discard potentially. They repeat the process here. We can then get Painful Quandary doing the 5 damage, and then Invoke Despair, draining them for 2 as well. And then every time they draw, they drain as well. So this deck is about draining, protecting with your counter spells, and basically getting your wins that way. Now land base, a little bit more rare lands in this one. We have Rafine's Tower in there, obviously because we're 3 color. We've got Shattered Santon, Caves, or Darker, Takunuma, and then we have a single Arganju, and then we have some basics as well. But I've really enjoyed playing the Esper Quandary deck, I must admit. You know me, I'm a blue mage. I do like playing blue decks as well, but maybe Orzhov for you, or maybe Esper Quandaries for you. Which one are you going to decide on? It does sometimes bait to which cards are in your collection, which is why we've done the 3 cards. Three cards, which is why we've done the 3 decks around Painful Quandary. But without further ado, let's get on to our final one, which is Grixis. So now we're on to Grixis, and we mix in a couple of like the first deck and of course of the Esper deck in this one. But by adding red, we get a couple of really good additions to the deck as well. Fable of the Mirror Breaker is really good. Creating that Shaman to attack in and get your treasure token can be really good. And obviously Obnicholas the Adversary, an extra type of win con. We can +1. Each opponent loses 2 life unless they discard a card. Getting rid of those cards from opponent's hands is good because it works very well with Painful Quandary, of course. We can create Devils, then do a drain, deals 1 damage to any target. But then if we have the Devil on, we also gain a little bit of life as well. So, as I said, Painful Quandary in the deck, full Invoke Despair. We've got the trio in this one. So this gives you, if these are in your collection, this gives you 3 different decks with these cards. And these, especially Invoke and Sheoldredge are very powerful. And then you add Painful Quandary in, and then it's going to be GG's, hopefully. So the mixture that we have in this, we have a little bit of counter magic. We've gone for Make Disappear in here. We want some early play in here. The 2 drops need to be filled up. So we've gone for that, and 4 of Negate to try and protect against, anyone removing our Obnicholas, Painful Quandaries and opponents like playing Invoke Despair as well, like I've spoke about. We also have Lily in here to add even more discard, so this is based around basically more hand disruption, this deck, with a little bit of counter magic and the same power at the end. Because we don't run white, we've got Drag to the bottom in this as our mass removal. Not always mass removal, but this is why we run these type of lands. Zayatoras, Xanders, and Raffine, all adding different plains, islands, swamps, mountains, and adding forests as well, which can only make this better. It gets +1 equal and plus to the equal number of basics among lands you control. So with these on the field, this really can be the sweeper that this deck needs sometimes. Creatures, we're going back with the graveyard, attacking the graveyards with this because, like I said, we don't run white, and graveyard is just a very good creature and has the discard effect, which is what this deck is more about as well. Duress, taking more hand disruption and taking their, just basically whatever their plan is apart. Removal with Go for the Throat, just 3 of them as well, because like I said, we do run the mass removal out, and we have a sacker feature, -2 target player sacks a creature with this card. So we have ways to deal with creatures as well. Invoke Despair is obviously very good at that as well. Like I said about land base, Rambe, it's a lot of rare lands in this one because there's a lot of different things we need to be doing. We got, we're adding the red in. We don't want to be missing the red with this. Hauntage is a couple, Storms, so we get the blue as well. Shipwreck, Marsh, Ottawara, we get to run a 1 of in this as well, and then some basics. But this Grixis deck, I've had so much fun playing as well, like I have with all 3 of the decks. So, basically what it is this will give you the option of, if you vote for Painful Quandary, it gives you 3 different decks with some core cards in all 3 of them. But then there's a little bit of a bit of a swing on each of them. What you want to do, either mass removal, more counter magic, or going more down the discard route. But yeah, which one are you going to vote for? So that was 3 different decks today around Painful Quandary. Such a fun little card. Now, like I said at the start of the video, please put down in the comments which one you want to see the gameplay one, which ones you're going to be playing, and any ideas you might have, extra additions to the deck after you've played them. I always take feedback back on, but I have put practice into these decks and they work very well. Sometimes, like in any decks, you'll get run over, you go on a bad run. It always does happen. You can't help it. It doesn't matter how much a good deck is. If Arena wants to be Arena, it will hurt you bad. But yeah, let me know in the comments. I hope you've enjoyed this video. There will be another poll up very soon where I'll give you another card, 4 cards to choose from. And then you let me know which card you want me to build around, and then I'll do the same sort of video. New type of content, this one, so let me know what you think. Please give it a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Big shout out to my Patreons. Thank you very much. If that's something you're interested in, I would, appreciate you go and take a look at it, and if you enjoy the content here, subscribing always does help as well. Thanks a lot if you stayed to the end, very much appreciated. You lot take care, and I'll see you on the next video.